Alright, so this is Wartales. I played it a lot whenever it was early access and not feature complete. They have since gotten to the 1.0 and they've released a couple of downloadable content editions that you can buy on Steam, but most importantly, they've also continuing to add base game content whenever they've made more DLC stuff. So most recently they've added a crossbowman class, so that's cool. There's a multiplayer feature where you can play with, I think, up to 3 other people through Steam's multiplayer systems, which is very fun. But for today, we're just going to start a new game. Each of the different starting choices gives you a set of 4 starting companions, which each one of them has a particular specialization. Well, not specialization. Specialization is what you unlock for them. But has a particular class, like weapon set, basically, that they are able to use. So swordsmen, swords, brutes, hammers, archers, bows, rangers, knives, etc. And so each starting choice you have, first of all, gives you some kind of starting stuff, like plus 30 influence, minus 5 overall materials. And then in addition to that, each of the choices has some variation to this last of the quirks. Everyone can be used along walks, cunning fighters, incredible resilience, slap games, or these guys could be quick learners, and in addition to that, have a serious lack of self-confidence. Whereas the men escorting merchants who lost their employer could sell anything to anyone for 10% sale price increase of items, and can be greediness far more developed than others. Or that's wages paid to everyone, but increased by 1. So you could choose based on what companions you want to start with, based on what, perks and penalties you want to start with. And some of them, like have 2 spearmen, a brute and an archer, 2 rangers, a brute and an archer, but for the most part, you get 4 different classes. And each class is either a strength or dexterity specialization. So for the one that I'm going to use, which is the men escorting merchants who lost their employer, I'm going to start with an extra 150 coin, minus 2 medicine, which is what you use whenever your people get injured. But I'm going to have a swordsman, warrior, brute, and spearman. They're all a strength-based class, but more important than that, I just like the set of having the frontliners more to develop. Having the frontliners already there, and then picking up backliners as we go, instead of having multiple people who are vulnerable and everything. So we have used to long walks, which is fatigue stacks 10% slower. We'll talk about all the tutorialization of stuff, but just we're going to be playing adaptive difficulty, so I personally don't think that the experience gain is a good idea. Because it just means that everything else is going to ramp up just as fast as you do, so you're kind of giving up a bonus. I mean, you do still get the increased influence, but that's only after battle, not after doing events, which is how you get most of your influence, camping and events. So, used to long walks is always good. Incredible resilience sounds good. Constitution increased by 10%, but this is for your entire crew. And it's only really going to be valuable on people who are getting hit. It can be the difference that 1 extra point of Constitution could be the difference between an archer dying or not, but usually it's mostly just good to have Constitution on your frontliners. It does also help with carry capacity, but that's not that big of a hindrance. You can just buy another pony if you can afford it. Excellent slap games. Its crit damage specifically increased by 10%, which is a lot. I think base crit damage is 30%, and then you have to increase your strength to get higher crit damage. Could sell anyone to anything to anyone, which is the merchant escort one. Merchant escort perk that you can choose is good throughout the entire game. Sell price increased by 10% through the entire game. So it's good to get money, but used to long walks is also good throughout the entire game. And it requires you to carry less food. It lets you not pay your people as often. 10% more time between rests means 10% more time before you have to feed them, and 10% more time before you have to pay them. Because you pay your troop every 3 rests. So it's early game, definitely very good, especially for, traveling further before you have to rest. It also has the bonus whenever you have any bonuses from having camped, like you've eaten food meals that give plus 15 strength or 15% strength or whatever, those will also last 10% longer. So a lot of benefit there versus just gold, which gold is very useful, but this is just saving us a little bit of gold, but also giving us other benefits as well. So I often go with long walks. Now, as far as the flaws, carrying capacity, the more people you have, the less this actually matters, because once you have enough carrying capacity, you don't really have to care about anything. The eternal dissatisfaction isn't that big of a deal as long as you have enough people to put around a campfire, and each person around the campfire gives you 1 happiness, so you can boost the happiness enough that the -1 doesn't really matter. Now, I would never choose the uncommon bout of bad luck, because even if you don't have a crit build on a person, that occasional crit, because base is 3%, so this basically removes the base crit chance from everyone. And that 3% crit chance, when it comes in clutch, is very much worth having. Danger during rest is something I often go, and probably will this time as well. Just because the 10% danger during rest can be negated with food, it can be negated with the watchtower upgrade for your campsite, and worst case scenario, it's just an extra battle. So, unless you're wanted by the guard, I think it can also be the guard finding you while you're camping if you're wanted, but I'm not going to be, running around with a bunch of guards hot on my trail most of the game, so I'm very comfortable with having the 10% chance of something attacking me when I first wake up. And then, the +1 wages paid to companions. It's not that bad, considering you only have to pay them every 3rd rest, and it's just +1 per person you have. But once you get a larger party going together, that adds up fast. And, +12, +15 gold every time, or every 3rd rest, kind of is a lot. It's not a lot if you're doing well, but if you're struggling, if you start, running out of repair materials, if you're constantly on the verge of being broke, then it could be a bit much. Although it is negated a bit by the prior being able to sell stuff for 10% more. In any case, that's why I'm going with very hard time getting up, because danger during rest, not a thing I'm too worried about. So, that's where we're going to go. Now, the region-locked exploration is the classic, every area has a set difficulty, every group of enemies has set levels, and so you can kind of hang around Tiltra in the beginner area for a while to build up strength and everything. Or you can play with adaptive exploration, where the enemies get stronger as you do. The only danger with this is that if they haven't adjusted it from the last time I tried it, you can end up in a situation where they have as many people as you and they're higher level than you, and you're not equipped to deal with that. So I'm going to try it just to see if they've improved on it, and that's my justification for not doing extreme mode. So the novice, experienced, expert are the difficulties as you would expect. And the danger with extreme mode is that instead of your characters dropping to a dying state once they hit 0 hit points, and then dying when they take damage again, they just immediately die when they hit 0 hit points. Retreating is an option that potentially injures your people, potentially further damages their armor in addition to whatever damage was already done, and of course you don't get any benefits from having won. And then the companions who flee are lost means that if their morale breaks and they run away from fights, normally they, still are part of your troop. You just have to finish the fight without them. But with extreme mode on, they just are gone. Enemy groups are faster. I think that just means in the world you have a harder time running away and avoiding fights. Disengagement comes at a greater penalty. I don't know exactly what that means, but disengagement is whenever you're engaged in a melee fight with somebody, and you leave that melee fight, they get an attack of opportunity. Maybe it just does more damage, or maybe using abilities that disengage still cause an attack of opportunity. I don't really know exactly what that does. But, yeah, then one of the reasons I don't want to go with it is whenever you click extreme, you have to go extreme on both survival and combat, rather than just expert or experience mix and match. And the thing that really bothers me is the happiness declines more quickly. Certain professions are dangerous. I don't even know what that means. Merchants restock slowly is the biggest one. If I could have everything else be active without the merchants restocking slowly, then cool. But honestly, merchants is one of the main methods of recovering if you just got done with, some serious slog fights, and if they haven't restocked and you're out of food, then you're in for a bad time. I am not going to go Iron Man difficulty. I am making YouTube videos. If Iron Man or Limited messes up, then unfortunately, yeah, I would have to start a new series. So I am going to go free, but I'm going to play it Honest Man. I'm just going to have one save that I use. And just always use that save. But at least I'll also have the autosave. I don't know if Limited lets me have one save and an autosave. I'd have to look into that. But regardless, I'll just do the Honest Man run, have the free save, and be able to just do it that way. Now then, also you can choose a starting region. Either Tiltrin, which is the default starting region, or Vertrus. Now, since we're playing adaptive difficulty, it doesn't matter which one I choose, because the enemies would be scaling based on my level. But if you're playing with the regional difficulty, Tiltrin is the tutorial area where everything's weak, and Vertrus is one of the stronger, it's the next level up. So I don't know if starting in Vertrus makes Tiltrin stronger, or if you just do stuff in Vertrus, then when you get to Tiltrin, it's super easy. I don't know. But I'm just going to start Tiltrin, do the adaptive difficulty, expert, and then I already explained the free save. So I'm going to cut here and come back once my people are ready. Alright, and here I have the party I'm going to use. Eleanor the Swordswoman. She is thick-skinned, brawny glutton. So thick-skinned is cool because it's 3% damage reduction, period, unless they have a condition that reduces their guard to 0. Even once the armor's broken. Usually guard only lasts until your armor is done, but she will still have 3% damage reduction after losing her armor. And that pairs well with Brawny, which is just for every 20 constitution, she gets another +1. It starts at +1. And then Glutton is pretty easy to deal with as far as perks go, which is why they're all Gluttons. +1 food is, they go up from 3 food per day to 4, or per camp, to 4 food per camp. It's a lot percentage-wise, but it's not really that hard to come by food. So, yeah. You can also go random, but there's some pretty bad ones. Like club-footed, reduced movement by 1 is pretty bad. Drunkard, if you have a drunkard and you're not giving them alcohol, they are going to be unhappy and you're going to have happiness penalties. But if you do give them the alcohol every single time you camp, the drunkardness will spread, because by default you have the chance of getting the drunkard quirk if you're giving them alcohol. So the more often you give them alcohol, the more alcohol you give them, the more drunkards you'll have. And it can get pretty expensive. But yeah, then Bloodthirsty Strong Glutton. These are all strength-based classes. So I'm going Bloodthirsty Strong Glutton on the damage ones, and on the tank, Thick-Skinned Brawny Glutton. As well as on Nightmare, once the horse becomes a tank, which will make it a war pony. It gets that in a bit. And it's Thick-Skinned Brawny Glutton. Same as the Swordsman. So, that's what I'm running with, and I will see you on the other side of the loading screen. Whenever you're camping, you have different structures available. Alright, let me try this again. So, whenever you're camping, you have different fixtures in the campsite that have different perks. For example, the campfire and workshop that are default give you +1 happiness for each assigned companion up to 4 out of 4. Or right now it's 4 out of 4, up to 4. And that happiness generation is every time you rest. The workshop is both a place where you make stuff by selecting a tinkerer, as well as when there's an assigned tinkerer, produces 2 tools, which is how you repair your armor, per rest. What is a tinkerer, you may ask? Well, it's a profession. And there's currently a bunch of professions I don't have unlocked yet, but I do have the tinkerer. And you can give that tinkerer to everyone. So, until I find other professions, they will all be tinkerers, which is fun. You can see the effect of the armor here. The barrel lid gives 9 guards, so Vina here has 9% damage reduction. Whereas, where is she? Eleanor here has 12, because of the thick skin trait. And if I remove all of her armor, she still has 3%. So, yeah, it's good. Tank is tanky. Good. Now then. I guess I'll start with the user interface. Top left corner is the current mercenary band. Once you get further in, you can rename yours, but I'm apparently the Boss Gag Brigade. You have however many companions in your troop, which includes the horse. And then it has the general bonuses and the equipment bonuses. So the equipment bonuses is mostly stuff that's like in your campsite, and the general bonuses is just various things, including food, meals you've eaten, and whatnot. But we'll get to that later. Knowledge, which is both available by clicking that as well as by clicking the compendium, shows you the different perks you can unlock as you get more knowledge. Knowledge you get by discovering new places, crafting things for the first time. So it lets you slowly progress and get more stuff. Things like your troop eats less food, or you can now sprint for short periods. And then there's others like, cannibalism lets you eat human corpses, stuff like that. Career plans is going to be the one I go for first, allowing me to have better control over the level ups that hit my troop is going to be very helpful. Now then, after that is the regional scenario. So each region has multiple quests that you can stumble across and do to work towards completing the region. Once you reach 100 out of 100, a region-specific event will start that you will take part in. And then suspicion, as you generate suspicion, then you could potentially end up wanted by the guard, and I'll try to remember to cover this once I get a thief, but for the time being, it's kind of not a thing to worry about. There are some non-stealing related things you can do that can generate suspicion, like threatening people and whatnot, but for the most part, it's tied to stealing. I'll cover that once I get that profession unlocked and everything. Happiness. If you're at -5, companions will leave your troop. Anywhere from, -5 to 0, they're going to be unhappy. You may have some penalties. From 0 to 7, or 0 to 6, nothing happens except not bad stuff. And then 7, you get 1 maximum valor point, which we'll talk about in just a second. And at 15 happiness, all experience you gain in combat is increased by 50%. But the really important part is any happiness gained above 15 happiness gives you influence. Influence, the next thing over, is the currency for doing things like what I mentioned, controlling the level ups better of my people, costs influence. Once you have the banner for your troop, which is, further in to the game, you can use influence for different perks that last for that rest and become more expensive as you use them back to back in rests. You can use them during events to have a better outcome or not have to use resources other than influence when you might otherwise have to give somebody something or bribe them. Valor points. Right now I have 2 out of the 5. Now, as you build things in your camp and as you get different perks and unlock things, you can get more and more max valor. Every time you camp, you get 2 valor points just base, and then there's other ways to gain more valor points per camp. So you can get to the point where you have, 8+ Valor points easily max, and you gain the majority of them back every time you rest, which makes it a lot more versatile in combat to use them. We'll talk about Valor in just a second when we talk about specializations. But next up, we have food. It currently shows the value of food that you have. So, for example, this bread is 4 food. These apples are 2 food. And if you have things that you can use a cook to make better, it will only show you the food amount of what they currently are. So, if you have some wolf meat, that's 4 food. If you have some salt to use a cook to make the wolf sausage, I think it is, then that's 6 food. So it won't show the 6 food even if you have enough salt and enough wolf meat. You just have to make it before it'll show it. But cool enough, it does show your consumption at present as well as how many days worth of rations you have. So right now, if I camp twice, I will be able to fully feed my troop for 2 full rests before I need to get more food. And then finally we have crowns. Crowns is our gold. I'm just going to refer to it as gold throughout the entire playthrough because that's basically just what it is. You pay your companions every 3rd rest, so right now I can rest 3 times before I have to pay them again. It can be a little bit weird if you're not used to it, but like when it says rest before next wages 1, that means you're paying them that time. Now, the nice thing is it does show wages due, and the wages due will show you if you're about to have to pay people when you camp. It also shows if you didn't successfully pay everyone the previous time you had to pay them, how much you still owe. So, keep an eye on that. And then the inventory button just opens and closes this once you have the camp chest upgrade, which, the camp chest lets you, move stuff between your inventory and the camp chest, which mostly matters if you're playing multiplayer, because you start with the camp chest, and that's the way you trade items between players. If you're playing Steam, you can play multiplayer with, I believe, up to 3 people, and just assign them. There will be a button to transfer the companion to another player. Other than that, there's the camp button to break and set up camp. There's the world map, which currently is just this, because I haven't explored anything. The dotted line is the Tiltron County province, so anything at the edge of that line is going to be either another county or impassable, or maybe both. And the compendium, again, is just the same as the knowledge in the corner. And the last thing to cover is the paths. So the different paths, you unlock more things you can do further on. But they are things like complete missions, allow enemies to flee, gain influence, etc. And then each start that you choose, like I chose the merchant escort start. So I'm going to get, every 2 times I defend a caravan from bandits, I will get one of the path points. And once I hit 5 path points, I'll be able to unlock knowledge. And these perks are based on what it is. So Mysteries and Wisdom has, perks related to the relics and things like that. Crime and Chaos has perks related to generating less suspicion, dropping suspicion faster, having faster move speed when you're wanted, whatever. I forget exactly what all the specifics are. Trade and Craftsmanship is more gold value for selling things, at better stats for crafted items, etc. And then Power and Glory is, as you might guess, things that increase your power, like better backstabs and things like that. And that is all of the UI and camp. So again, this is, I don't know if I mentioned, but yeah, you can go and craft things based on the profession table. Like this, there's a cooking pot, there's a lectern for the scholar for the scholar profession, etc. But you're just able to make stuff that does things and is used for things. Yeah, that's the camp chest you start with. So you basically start with a free 6 iron and 6 wood for if you're playing multiplayer. I'll talk about that once I have one. And then the last thing I think I'm going to touch before I call it for the tutorialization episode is Vina here is a brute. Currently, she can use clothing, just basic armor, because she doesn't have a specialization. I'll show you in a second. Clubs, hammers, and shields. She can also equip 2-handed hammers. mercenaries. Now, once I upgrade her, once I level her up, I can choose to have her be a vanguard, which lets her have medium armor and gives her +1 strength, a smasher that gives her +1 strength and lets her wear medium armor, or a destroyer, which gives her heavy armor and +2 constitution. Now, Vina in particular, the reason I gave her first aid Bloodthirsty Strong is because I'm planning on giving her a two-handed hammer as soon as possible, and making her a vanguard, so she'll be super maneuverable, she'll have a lot of AoE damage, and it'll be good times. But Relentless Charge there is a Valor Point ability, which brings us back to the Valor Points. You have however many Valor Points out of however many, whenever you start a battle. Whenever you use a Valor Point ability, it uses 1 Valor Point or 2 for... There are some... Yeah, here we go. This one shows 2 is the cost. And the way that you can get them back in the middle of a fight is the different perks. So, for example, again, using Vina as an example, I plan to have Relentless Charge, which is going to be an AoE ability that can hit multiple people. I'm going to have a two-handed hammer that can hit multiple people, and then I'm going to give her Valorous Chain. So every time she uses an attack that hits multiple people, she's going to generate 1 Valor Point. Which is going to be, pretty nice. It will allow her to regenerate the Valor Point she used for Vanguard to run through people. However, when you're generating Valor Points in battle like that, it's a yellow Valor Point, as you can see if you don't struggle to see the difference between the orange and the yellow. The yellow is a bonus Valor Point, which means it will disappear at the end of a battle. Whereas the orange Valor Points, as long as you don't use them by the end of the battle, you will not lose them. And I think I'll save the rest. I'll discuss attributes and things whenever... Well, I guess I'll just go over them now. Strength. Strength is damage for strength-based skills. Like, all of my people's skills right now are, you see, it says Pound, deals 4 to 5 damage, has a bonus of additional damage to enemies with armor, and then it says Melee, parentheses, Strength. So, she has strength-based skills. Now, there is the Wrath ability. It just says Melee, and what that usually means is it's either your highest of Strength or Dexterity, or it just doesn't care. Like, it might be damage that's completely independent of Strength and Dexterity. But, yeah. A lot of items, whenever you're looting them or crafting them or whatever, they'll show you, like... Actually, I think I can... Nope, I don't have... I don't have the blacksmith unlocked yet, so I can't show you that. But yeah, so strength and dexterity, usually a class is either strength or dexterity. In addition to the base damage on skills that use strength, you also get critical damage % as you build up your strength. Dexterity gives you dexterity-based damage increases and critical hit chance. Constitution gives health and carrying capacity. Willpower is interesting. It gives critical hit chance. It also makes it easier to have the enemies flee, makes it less likely your people will flee, and once you hit the 15 willpower breakpoint, when your characters reach 0 health, instead of immediately going into the dying state or completely being dead if you're playing on the, crazy extreme difficulty, they will survive with 1 hit point, and it'll take another hit for them to drop down to the dying state. And that can be very helpful, especially early on. Or if you're facing a lot of people that have status effect stuff, because if you have to activate somebody who's dying and they have poison or bleed or burn, they're going to just die at the end of the turn unless you're able to heal them somehow. Critical hit chance. If you level up critical hit, you get critical hit chance and damage. But everyone starts with a base of 3%, and then you can see the Bloodthirsty trait doubles the base, and then, or not necessarily doubles, it's an extra 3%, so it's effectively doubling the base value. And then having a Tinkerer gives 2%. Each profession gives different stats, so some of them, like Woodcutter, will give strength and dexterity, and it's just, if you don't... Choosing a profession for the person who can benefit from the stats it gives is usually a good thing. And then we move on to movement. So I will cover movement more in combat, but just be aware that movement is, every one movement is 2 of the small squares, which you'll see whenever we get to the combat. Wages, how much we have to pay every 3rd rest. And that will go up as they gain levels, so your mercenary company gets more and more expensive as they get better and better. Food consumption, base is 3. Since all of my people are gluttons, instead of having to come up with 15 food for the 5 of them, I will have to come up with 20. But that's not that big of a deal. It kind of is rough when I have, that's more than a whole loaf of bread. But pretty quickly we'll be able to deal with that, no problem. And then carrying capacity. Right now, you can see in the bottom right corner, we have 20.8 stuff out of 94 total available. 6 of that is from Scold here. 6 of it is from Vina, etc., etc. Oh, wait. What? Huh. I don't know why Eleanor has 7. Oh, it's because the Constitution. Right. Constitution increases carry capacity. So at 9 Constitution, everyone has 6. At 10 Constitution, because she's brawny, she now has 7. And then Nightmare, because Nightmare's a horse, has 59 base, in part because of the 12 Constitution, as well as 10 from the saddlebags that Nightmare is carrying. So that's where literally almost 3/4 of our carry capacity is just our pony. So if we make him a warhorse and he dies, then we just lost a ton of carry capacity. So we'll hope to have another pony that's a workhorse by then. Oh yeah, that's a thing. Animals, specializations, yep. One thing to note is you can capture wolves and wild boar and stuff, except they can't wear armor, horses can. So, keep that in mind. And I probably will at some point, especially if I can get a hold of a bear. Bears are fun. Probably run an animal or 2 here and there once I have somebody that lets me control the animals. But for now, I'm just going to try to get Nightmare up to high enough level to be used in combat. And hopefully be able to use them to good effect. Once the pony hits level 5, I can give horse armor to it, and the horse armor will make that thing a heck of a tank. So she will be one of our frontliners. Now then, that covers all the user interface, I believe. I'll try to remember things as we come to it. But, yep. I'm going to just actually make sure that I do go over one thing. Because I might forget, I might just do it without commenting. I think I mentioned influence being used. There's a knowledge thing you can unlock. So whenever they level up, and sometimes from events and things like that, your people will have 3 different stats that will have either double plus on one of them, or a single plus. So if you have double plus on Constitution, that means +2 Constitution. If you have a single plus on Constitution, it means +1 Constitution. But if you have that particular knowledge unlocked, you can spend influence to add pluses. So instead of just getting +1 Constitution, you can get +2 Constitution and pay a little bit of influence for it. Or if you have 3 things that you just don't want, you can choose something and add 2 pluses for a lot more influence. It's one of the things that you can spend influence on as you go about your day. And I think that is most everything. And I think I'll start tomorrow with the first battle, the tutorialization of the battle, and talking about towns and things like that. But I feel like I've been talking a lot, so I'm going to cut it here and maybe edit this out and just stick the rest onto it in case this hasn't gone as long as I think it has. But for now, that's been your episode of Wartales for the day. Hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, have a good one.